Hey, everyone. I'm Emily.
And I'm Tom. Hey, Emily, how are you?
I'm fine. Hey, Tom. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to talk about something that almost everyone can understand, whether you're a beginner in English or someone who has been learning for years.
That sounds interesting already, Emily. Are we talking about friendship, love, or one of those topics where you somehow manage to make me answer difficult questions?
Maybe a little of all three, but don't worry, I'm not going to interview you about your personal life today.
That's good to hear, because I came here to practice English, not to sit in the middle of an unexpected interview.
Don't worry, Tom. Today's conversation is actually about something very practical. We're going to learn how people talk about friendship, getting to know someone, trust, misunderstandings, and feelings in everyday English.
I really like that because these are conversations people have all the time, but English learners don't always learn the natural expressions they need for them.
Exactly. You might know words like friend, love, trust, and happy, but knowing individual words isn't enough when you're actually sitting with someone and trying to have a real conversation.
Right. You need to know how to put those words together naturally, especially when you're talking about someone you care about.
And that's what we're going to practice today. We're not going to use complicated vocabulary or difficult grammar just to make the conversation sound impressive.
Instead, we're going to speak like two real friends sitting together and talking about people, relationships, and everyday situations.
And there will be a story connecting everything, so you won't just hear random questions and answers that don't really go anywhere.
That's important because when you're listening to a real conversation, one idea usually leads to another idea, and then something happens that changes the direction of the conversation.
Exactly. So let's imagine that you and I have been friends for quite a long time, and one evening we're sitting in a quiet cafe after work.
Sounds good. Coffee is always a good beginning for a conversation.
I knew you would say that.
Of course. Some conversations need coffee, especially conversations about love and friendship.
That's actually a good point. When people feel comfortable with someone, they often talk about things they don't normally discuss with everyone.
And sometimes that's how a friendship becomes stronger.
Yes, but sometimes things can become a little complicated when you start caring about someone more than you expected.
Now I understand where this conversation is going.
Maybe you do, but let's not jump ahead.
Fair enough.
Let's start with something simple. Tom, what do you think makes someone a good friend?
For me, a good friend is someone who listens when you need to talk, but also tells you the truth when you need to hear it.
I like that answer. So you don't think a good friend should always agree with you?
Not at all. If my friend makes a bad decision, I don't want someone who simply says, "That's great," just because they don't want to disagree with me.
Exactly. Sometimes honesty is more useful than agreement.
But I think there's an important difference between being honest and being rude.
Absolutely. You can tell someone the truth without making them feel small or embarrassed.
That's a useful idea for English learners too, because sometimes we focus so much on finding the correct words that we forget about the way we say them.
That's right. The same sentence can sound friendly, cold, angry, or even funny depending on your tone.
Which means learning English isn't only about grammar. It's also about understanding how people communicate with each other.
And that's exactly what today's episode is about.
So, are we going to talk about a specific story?
Yes. Let's imagine that I recently met someone new through a mutual friend.
Okay.
At first, we didn't talk very much. We simply said hello when we saw each other, and sometimes we talked about work or everyday things.
So just a normal introduction.
Exactly. But after a few weeks, we started having longer conversations.
What did you talk about?
Everything from movies and food to travel, work, and our plans for the future.
That sounds like the beginning of a good friendship.
It was, but then something interesting happened.
What happened?
One day, the person didn't reply to my message.
And you immediately thought something was wrong?
At first, yes. I wondered if I had said something wrong.
That's very common. When someone doesn't reply, people sometimes create a whole story in their head before they know what actually happened.
Exactly. I started thinking, maybe they're upset with me, or maybe they don't want to talk to me anymore.
But maybe they were simply busy.
That's what I eventually realized.
That's an important lesson about relationships. We don't always know what's happening in another person's life.
Yes, and that's why communication is so important.
Instead of guessing, sometimes it's better to ask.
Exactly. A simple question like, "Is everything okay?" can be much better than spending hours imagining different explanations.
And that sentence is very useful in everyday English.
Definitely. You can use it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, or someone you care about.
So today's conversation isn't only about romantic love.
Not at all. Love can mean caring about someone, but friendship also involves care, trust, respect, patience, and communication.
I think that's what makes this topic useful for English learners.
Yes, you can learn how to talk about your feelings without using extremely difficult English.
And hopefully you'll also learn how to have a conversation without turning it into a dramatic movie scene.
Don't worry, we have enough drama in real life already.
True. Sometimes losing your phone is dramatic enough.
Or forgetting where you parked your car.
That's not drama. That's a full investigation.
Exactly. So, what's the first part of today's story?
We're going to start with friendship. We'll talk about how two people become comfortable with each other, how they start sharing personal things, and how small conversations can slowly build trust.
And while we're doing that, we'll learn natural expressions that English learners can use when talking about their own friends. Then we'll move into a more complicated situation, where one person starts wondering if the friendship has changed.
And that's where things could become interesting.
Very interesting.
I think I know what you're planning.
Maybe you do.
Well, I'm ready.
Then let's begin with the first question. What makes someone feel comfortable enough to become your friend?
That's a good question, Emily. I think the answer starts with a simple conversation.
So, Tom, imagine you meet someone for the first time at a small cafe and you realize you have a mutual friend. What would you say to start the conversation?
I would probably smile and say, "Hi, I think we've met before. Are you Sarah's friend?"
That's natural and easy to understand. What if the other person says yes?
Then I might say, "I thought so. Sarah told me about you, but I don't think we've actually talked before."
That's a good way to continue without making the conversation feel forced.
Right. And then I could ask something simple like, "How do you know Sarah?"
That's a great conversation starter because the question gives the other person something easy to talk about.
Exactly. You don't need to begin with a deep question. Sometimes a simple question is enough to open the door to a longer conversation.
That's something English learners should remember. If you're nervous, don't try to say something impressive. Just ask a simple question that naturally connects to the situation.
Yes, for example, if you're at a party, you could say, "How do you know everyone here?"
Or if you're at a class, you could say, "Have you taken this class before?"
And if you're at work, you could say, "How long have you been working here?"
Those questions are simple, but they can start real conversations.
And once the conversation starts, you can listen to the person's answer and ask another question based on what they said.
That's actually one of the most important parts of a good conversation.
Listening.
Exactly. A conversation isn't just about waiting for your turn to speak.
That's true. If someone tells me, "I love traveling," I shouldn't immediately change the subject and start talking about myself.
Right. You could ask, "Really? Where have you traveled?"
Or, "What's your favorite place so far?"
And then the conversation naturally continues.
That's how friendships often begin, not with one huge conversation, but with many small conversations.
I agree. You might talk for 5 minutes one day, 10 minutes another day, and eventually you realize you know quite a lot about each other.
You learn what they like, what makes them laugh, what they're interested in, and sometimes what they're worried about.
And that's when trust can begin to grow.
But trust doesn't happen immediately.
No, I think trust takes time.
Exactly. If someone tells me a personal story 5 minutes after meeting me, I might be surprised.
You might also wonder why they trust you so quickly.
Exactly. I'd probably think, "We just met and I'm already responsible for this information?"
That's why relationships usually develop step by step.
You start with simple topics, then you slowly learn more about each other.
And if the other person listens without judging you, you feel more comfortable talking to them.
That's an important expression. I feel comfortable talking to you.
Yes, English learners can use that sentence when they want to tell someone that they feel safe and relaxed during a conversation.
For example, I don't usually talk about this, but I feel comfortable talking to you.
That's a very natural sentence.
But you wouldn't normally say it to someone you met 2 minutes ago.
Probably not. That might make the conversation a little intense.
Exactly.
So let's imagine our friendship continues. We start meeting regularly, maybe once or twice a week.
We might go for coffee, walk around the city, or talk after work.
And eventually, we start noticing small things about each other.
Like remembering someone's favorite drink.
Or remembering an important date.
Or knowing that your friend doesn't like very spicy food.
That's actually a good example, because remembering small details shows that you're paying attention.
And people appreciate that.
Exactly. You don't need to buy someone an expensive gift to show that you care.
Sometimes remembering a small detail is more meaningful.
For example, if your friend says, "I have an important interview tomorrow," you can remember it and ask the next day, "How did your interview go?"
That's simple, but it shows that you were listening.
And that kind of attention can make a friendship stronger.
I think another important part of friendship is being able to laugh together.
Definitely.
If you can sit together and laugh about something silly that happened during the day, you don't always need a serious conversation.
That's true. Sometimes the best friendships are comfortable enough that you can talk about important things 1 minute and completely silly things the next minute.
Like arguing about whether pineapple belongs on pizza.
That's not an argument. That's a dangerous subject.
See? This is exactly what I mean.
Fine, we won't start a pizza war today.
Thank you.
But there is something more important than having fun together.
What's that?
Being there when the other person has a difficult day.
I agree. If your friend is having a problem, you don't always need to give advice immediately.
Sometimes they just want someone to listen.
You could say, if you want to talk about it, I'm here.
That's a very useful expression.
Or take your time, I'm listening.
Simple, natural, and supportive.
And you don't have to solve the person's problem.
Exactly. Sometimes listening is already helpful.
I think that's one of the things that makes friendship different from a casual relationship.
How so?
With a casual friend, you might talk about movies, food, work, or weekend plans. But with a close friend, you can also talk about things that are difficult or personal.
That makes sense.
And when someone trusts you with something personal, you should respect that trust.
Absolutely. Don't share someone's private story with everyone else.
That's a very important rule.
So if we look at today's first lesson, friendship isn't created by one perfect conversation.
It's built through many ordinary conversations,
Through listening,
through honesty,
through respect.
and through spending time together.
Exactly.
But sometimes when two people become very close, something can change.
Yes, one person might start thinking about the relationship in a different way.
And that's where things can become confusing.
That's exactly what we'll explore next. And we'll learn how to talk about those feelings naturally, without making the conversation sound like a movie script.
Good, because I don't think either of us is ready for a dramatic movie scene.
Give it time, Tom.
That's a little worrying.
Welcome back, everyone. We talked about how a simple conversation can slowly become a real friendship, and now we're going to move into a situation that many people experience but don't always know how to talk about in English.
Yes, because sometimes you spend more time with someone, you become comfortable around them, and then one day you realize that your feelings about the relationship may have changed.
Exactly. And that doesn't always mean something dramatic has happened. Sometimes you simply notice that you think about that person more often, or you look forward to seeing them more than you used to.
And that can make you ask yourself a very simple question. Is this still just friendship, or is something changing?
That's a great question, Tom, and it's also a useful sentence pattern for English learners because we often use is this or is when we're trying to understand a situation.
Right. For example, you could say, is he upset with me, or is he just tired?
Or is she busy today, or does she not want to talk?
Those are simple sentences, but they're very useful in everyday conversations.
So let's continue our story. Imagine that the friendship between us has become stronger over several months.
Okay, we talk almost every day, we meet for coffee sometimes, and we often send each other funny messages during the day.
At first, everything feels completely normal.
But then I start noticing something.
What do you notice?
I start checking my phone whenever I hear a message notification.
That's a little suspicious.
I know, and sometimes I check my phone even when it hasn't made a sound.
Tom, that's not checking your phone, that's hoping for a message.
Maybe you're right.
And who are you hoping will message you?
Well, you know the person we're talking about.
Ah, I see.
I start thinking about our conversations during the day, and when something funny happens, that person is one of the first people I want to tell.
That sounds like the friendship is becoming more important to you.
Exactly. But I don't immediately know what it means.
That's realistic because feelings aren't always clear. Sometimes you need time to understand what you're actually feeling.
So instead of saying something immediately, I decide to pay attention to how I feel when we're together.
What happens when you meet?
I feel comfortable, but I also become a little more nervous than before.
Nervous?
Yes. Before, I could talk about anything without thinking too much. Now, sometimes I think about what I'm going to say before I say it.
That sounds familiar.
And sometimes I change my shirt 3 times before meeting the person.
3 times?
Maybe 4.
That's definitely not ordinary coffee anymore.
I know. I started asking myself, why am I suddenly thinking so much about this?
That's an honest question.
But I didn't want to make assumptions about the other person.
That's important. Just because you have feelings for someone doesn't mean you know how they feel about you.
Exactly. So I decided not to rush into a conversation about it.
Instead, you continued being yourself.
Yes, I wanted to understand the situation before making it complicated.
That's a mature approach.
But then one evening, something happened that made me think about the relationship even more.
What happened?
We were sitting in a cafe after work, and the other person suddenly asked me, "Can I ask you something?"
That's one of those sentences that immediately makes you nervous.
Exactly. The moment I heard it, I thought, okay, something serious is coming.
What did you say?
I said, sure, what's on your mind?
Very natural.
Then the person looked at me for a moment and said, "Do you think our friendship has changed?"
Oh, that's a very interesting question.
I was surprised because that was exactly what I had been thinking.
So what did you do?
I didn't answer immediately. I took a moment and said, "I think we've become closer, but I'm not sure what that means."
That's a very honest answer.
I didn't want to pretend I had everything figured out.
That's actually a useful communication skill. When you're unsure, you can say, "I'm not completely sure, but..."
Exactly. For example, "I'm not completely sure, but I think we've become closer recently."
Or, "I'm not sure how to explain it, but I feel like something has changed."
Those expressions are useful because they allow you to explain your thoughts without sounding too certain.
Right. Sometimes people make conversations more difficult because they feel they have to give a perfect answer immediately.
But real conversations don't work that way.
Exactly. You can pause, think, and say what you honestly know at that moment.
So, after I answered, the other person smiled and said, "I feel the same way."
That must have been a relief.
It was, but I still didn't know exactly what they meant.
So you asked.
Yes, I said, "When you say that, what do you mean?"
That's a very good question because you're asking for clarification instead of guessing.
The person explained, "I just feel like we understand each other better now, and I really enjoy spending time with you."
That's a clear and natural way to express feelings.
Then I said, I feel the same way. I really value our friendship.
Notice that you didn't immediately use a very strong word like love.
Right. I wanted to be honest, but I also wanted to respect the situation.
That's important because relationships develop at different speeds.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to give the other person space to understand their own feelings too.
And that's where respect becomes important.
Yes, you shouldn't pressure someone to give you an answer before they're ready.
A useful sentence for that situation is, "You don't have to answer right away."
Or, take your time. I just wanted to be honest with you.
Those sentences sound calm and respectful.
And they can make a difficult conversation much easier.
So what happened next?
We continued talking, but the conversation became more personal.
What did you talk about?
We talked about what we expected from our relationships with other people, what we thought was important in a friendship, and what made us feel respected.
That's a very useful conversation because people often have different ideas about relationships.
Exactly. One person might think that talking every day is normal, while another person might prefer more personal space.
One person might enjoy sending messages all day, while another person might only reply when they have time.
And neither person is necessarily wrong.
That's an important point.
People have different communication styles.
Yes. That's why it's better to talk about expectations instead of assuming the other person understands them.
For example, you could say, I don't expect you to reply immediately. I know you're busy.
Or, if you're busy, just let me know. I won't take it personally.
That's a very healthy way to communicate.
It also prevents small misunderstandings from becoming big problems.
Exactly. A lot of relationship problems don't begin with something huge. They begin with one person making an assumption.
And then the other person makes a different assumption.
Before you know it, both people are upset about something that was never actually discussed.
That's how people can create an entire argument without having one real conversation.
Exactly. You can have an argument with someone in your imagination before they even know there's a problem.
That's surprisingly true.
So that evening, we decided that honesty would be better than guessing.
What did you say?
I said, I really enjoy being around you, and I don't want to make our friendship uncomfortable. I just think it's better if we're honest with each other.
That's a strong but respectful sentence.
The other person agreed and said, I feel the same way. Whatever happens, I don't want us to stop being friends.
That's an important moment.
Yes, we both understood that the friendship was valuable, regardless of what happened next.
So, did you decide to start a relationship?
We decided not to rush.
I like that.
We agreed to keep talking, keep spending time together, and see how things developed naturally.
That's realistic.
And honestly, I felt much more relaxed after that conversation.
Why?
Because I didn't have to guess anymore.
That's one of the biggest lessons from today's story.
Yes, clear communication can remove a lot of unnecessary worry.
And it doesn't mean you have to say everything perfectly.
You just need to be honest, respectful, and willing to listen.
Exactly.
And there's another important English expression here. I don't want to make things awkward.
That's very useful when you're talking about a relationship that might be changing.
For example, I value our friendship, and I don't want to make things awkward.
Or, I hope this conversation doesn't make things awkward between us.
Those sentences are especially useful because they show that you care about the relationship, not just about getting the answer you want.
That's a very important difference.
Exactly.
So, Tom, what did you learn from that conversation?
I learned that you shouldn't try to read someone's mind.
Good answer.
If something is unclear, ask politely.
And if you don't know how you feel, give yourself some time.
If someone tells you how they feel, listen before you respond.
And most importantly, respect the other person's feelings, even when they're different from yours.
That's something we can use far beyond romantic relationships.
Absolutely. The same communication skills are useful with friends, family members, coworkers, and even people we have just met.
So friendship may start with a simple hi, but a strong relationship grows through many honest conversations.
And sometimes one honest conversation can prevent a lot of unnecessary misunderstanding.
Exactly.
But our story isn't finished yet.
No, because after that conversation, something unexpected happened.
What happened?
A few days later, we had our first real misunderstanding.
Ah, there it is.
Yes, everything was going well until one small message was misunderstood.
And that's where part 3 will become very practical for our English learners.
Because we'll show you how to handle a misunderstanding without becoming angry, defensive, or silent.
We'll practice phrases for explaining yourself, apologizing, asking for clarification, and making things right.
And those are expressions that you can use in many real-life situations, not just friendship or love.
Exactly, because sometimes the strongest relationships aren't the ones without problems.
They're the ones where people know how to talk through the problems.
And that's what we'll explore next.
And this time, it's not about finding the right words to express a feeling.
It's about what happens when two people use the right words, but one person still understands them differently.
And that's when communication really becomes important.
Tom and his friend finally had an honest conversation about how their friendship was changing, and instead of rushing into anything, they decided to give each other time and continue talking naturally.
Yes. And honestly, after that conversation, I felt much more relaxed because I didn't have to keep guessing what the other person was thinking.
But, unfortunately, real relationships don't become perfect just because two people have one good conversation.
Exactly. A few days later, we had our first real misunderstanding.
What happened?
It started with something very small. I sent a message in the afternoon because I wanted to ask if we could meet for coffee after work.
That sounds completely normal.
It was. I sent a simple message saying, "Are you free after work? I thought we could get some coffee if you have time."
That's a very natural message.
Yes, but I didn't get a reply for several hours.
And what did you think?
At first, I didn't think anything. I assumed the person was busy.
Good.
But after a few hours, I started checking my phone again.
Here we go again.
I know. I told myself, don't worry about it. Then 5 minutes later, I checked my phone again.
That's what we call trying not to worry while actively worrying.
Exactly.
Did you send another message?
I almost did, but I stopped myself because I didn't want to pressure the person.
That was probably a good decision.
A few hours later, I finally received a message.
What did it say?
It said, "Sorry, I can't meet today. Maybe another time."
That's a very short message.
Yes, and that's where I made a mistake.
What did you think it meant?
I thought the person didn't want to meet me anymore.
But the message didn't actually say that.
Exactly. It only said they couldn't meet that day.
That's an important difference.
But because I was already worried, I interpreted the message negatively.
This happens a lot with text messages because we can't hear the other person's tone.
Right. If someone says, "maybe another time," in person with a smile, it can sound friendly.
But when you only see those words on your phone, you might imagine a completely different tone.
Exactly.
So what did you reply?
I replied, "Okay, no problem."
That sounds fine.
The words were fine, but honestly, I was annoyed when I wrote them.
Did the other person know you were annoyed?
Apparently, yes.
How?
The next morning, I received another message saying, "Are you upset with me?"
Oh, so the misunderstanding went both ways.
Exactly. I thought the other person didn't want to meet me, while the other person thought I was angry because I replied so briefly.
That's a perfect example of why communication can be difficult.
Yes, two people can read the same conversation and understand completely different things.
So what did you say?
I decided not to continue the misunderstanding through text. I asked if we could talk for a few minutes.
Good choice.
We met later that afternoon, and I started by saying, "I think there was a misunderstanding yesterday, and I'd like to clear it up."
That's an excellent expression.
The other person agreed and said, "I think so too. I wasn't sure why you suddenly sounded upset."
What did you say?
I explained honestly, I wasn't angry, I was just a little disappointed because I thought maybe you didn't want to spend time with me anymore.
That's much clearer than simply saying, you ignored me.
Exactly. I tried to explain my own feelings instead of blaming the other person.
That's a very important communication skill.
Instead of saying, "You made me feel bad," I said, "I felt a little disappointed because I wasn't sure what you meant."
That's a much calmer way to talk about a difficult situation.
The other person then explained, "I'm sorry, I really was busy yesterday. I had an unexpected problem at work and I couldn't look at my phone for most of the afternoon."
So there was a completely different reason.
Exactly.
And that shows why we shouldn't assume we know what someone is thinking.
Yes, I had created a whole story in my head and none of it was true.
Our imagination can sometimes work much faster than reality.
That's true. My brain had already written 3 chapters before I got the actual explanation.
And probably a dramatic ending, too.
Definitely.
So what did you say after hearing the explanation?
I said, I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have assumed you were avoiding me.
That's a very natural apology.
The other person smiled and said, it's okay. I understand why you felt that way.
That must have made things easier.
It did. Then we talked about something important.
What was that?
We agreed that if either of us was busy or couldn't reply, we shouldn't immediately take it personally.
That's a very useful rule for any relationship.
Exactly. People have work, family, responsibilities, problems, and sometimes they simply need some quiet time.
Not replying immediately doesn't always mean someone is angry or doesn't care.
Right.
And that's a useful English expression too. Don't take it personally.
For example, if someone doesn't answer your message quickly, you can remind yourself, I shouldn't take it personally. They might just be busy.
That's a very healthy way to think.
We also talked about being clearer in our messages.
What do you mean?
Instead of sending a very short message like, okay, I could say, no problem, I understand. Let me know when you're free.
That's much warmer.
Exactly. The words are only slightly different, but the meaning feels much friendlier.
That's something English learners should pay attention to.
Yes, sometimes you don't need more difficult vocabulary, you simply need a little more context.
For example, instead of saying, fine, you could say, that's fine, we can talk later.
Or instead of whatever, you could say, that's okay, we can decide later.
The second versions sound much more polite.
And they reduce the chance of misunderstanding.
So, after you cleared everything up, did your friendship become stronger?
I think it did,
Why?
because we learned something about each other. We learned how easily a small misunderstanding can happen, and we learned that talking about it calmly is better than avoiding it.
That's an important lesson.
We also learned that being close to someone doesn't mean you'll always understand each other perfectly.
Exactly.
Sometimes you will misunderstand a message.
Sometimes you'll say something the wrong way.
Sometimes you'll be tired and respond too quickly.
And sometimes the other person will misunderstand you even when you didn't mean anything negative.
That's normal.
The important thing is what you do next.
You can stay silent and let the misunderstanding grow.
Or you can say, can we talk about what happened?
That's one of the most useful sentences in today's episode.
Another useful expression is, I didn't mean it that way.
That's very important when someone misunderstands your words.
For example, I'm sorry if that sounded rude. I didn't mean it that way.
Or, I understand why you thought that, but I didn't mean it that way.
Those sentences help you explain your intention without attacking the other person.
Exactly.
And if you don't understand someone else's intention,
Ask.
exactly.
You can say, can you help me understand what you meant?
That's much better than immediately saying, why did you say that?
Yes, because the first sentence sounds like you're trying to understand, while the second can sound like you're already angry.
Tone matters.
Very much.
So, Tom, after everything that happened, what do you think makes a relationship strong?
I think it's not about never having problems.
Then what is it about?
It's about being able to talk when problems happen.
I agree.
You need trust, but you also need communication.
You need honesty, but you also need kindness.
You need to express your feelings, but you also need to listen to the other person's feelings.
And you need to understand that nobody communicates perfectly all the time.
Exactly.
That's why today's topic is called Easy English Conversations About Love and Friendship.
Because talking about relationships doesn't have to involve complicated English.
You can start with simple sentences.
I really appreciate you.
I enjoy spending time with you.
Can we talk about what happened?
I didn't mean it that way.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood you.
I understand how you feel.
Let's talk about it calmly.
These are simple sentences, but they can help you communicate in real situations.
And that's the main goal of our podcast.
We want you to use English when you're talking to real people.
Whether you're talking to a friend at a cafe,
Sending a message to someone you care about,
solving a misunderstanding,
or simply having a conversation after a long day.
English becomes much more useful when you connect it to real situations.
And today's story gave us plenty of those situations. We started with a simple friendship.
Then the friendship became closer.
We learned how to talk about changing feelings.
Then a small misunderstanding happened.
And finally, we learned how honest communication helped solve the problem.
That's a pretty realistic picture of relationships.
Exactly. Not perfect, not dramatic, and not always easy.
Just two people trying to understand each other.
And that's something everyone can relate to.
Before we finish, let's review a few expressions one more time.
Good idea.
I feel like something has changed.
I'm not completely sure, but
I really value our friendship.
I don't want to make things awkward.
I think there was a misunderstanding.
I didn't mean it that way.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood you.
Can we talk about what happened?
Don't take it personally.
And finally, let's talk about it calmly.
If you can use even a few of these sentences naturally, you'll already have more confidence in everyday conversations.
So don't worry about speaking perfect English.
Focus on communicating clearly.
Listen carefully.
Ask questions when you're not sure.
And give the other person a chance to explain.
Because sometimes one simple conversation can solve a problem that you've been thinking about all day.
And sometimes one honest conversation can make a friendship even stronger.
I think that's a good place to end today's story.
I agree.
Thanks for spending this time with us.
We hope you enjoyed listening to Tom and Emily's conversation, and we hope you also found some expressions that you can use in your own English practice.
Remember, you don't need complicated English to talk about important things.
Simple words spoken clearly and honestly can be powerful.
Keep practicing.
Keep listening.
Keep talking.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Because every conversation gives you another chance to learn.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Until then, take care and keep practicing your English.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.